While I was away, a bunch of new stuff dropped not just about Poppy Playtime Chapter 5, but also mob entertainment in general. We won't go over the overused topics like the Fortnite collab or Chapter 4 releasing on consoles. Instead, I've picked out a few lesser-known updates. And trust me, the details behind them aren't as obvious as they seem at first glance. I've already seen a lot of people talk about that so-called official leak where Mob Entertainment registered the trademark Smiling Critters Survivors. And yeah, it's pretty clear it's tied to those same critters from Chapter 3. I've seen tons of theories. Some folks think it's part of Poppy Play Park, others believe it's a standalone game, or maybe even some show. But I'm more than sure it's deeper than that. This name is clearly linked to the idea that some of the Smiling Critters actually survived the events of Chapter 3, which is crazy because most of us were convinced they all got wiped out by Catnap under the prototype's orders. But this trademark gives us a solid clue, maybe even an official confirmation, that things didn't go down so simple. Like Crafty Corn might have made it and is now hiding somewhere in the Playtime factory. I'm honestly convinced we'll see all the surviving critters in Chapter 5. And once that drops, Mob Entertainment's probably gonna launch a new toy line under the Smiling Critters Survivors brand. That's why they filed the trademark early. Same thing they did during the gap between Chapters 3 and 4 when they leaked all the Nightmare Critters' names the exact same way. Lock that info in your head, because once we get through the rest of the updates, we're definitely circling back to figure out who actually survived and who we might see in Chapter 5. Now, everyone remembers the good old days when Mob used to drop those VHS tapes about characters like Huggy, Kissy, and Brawn, right? But after Brawn, things went silent for a while, until mid-June. That's when, as a warm-up for Chapter 4's console release, they suddenly dropped a new tape featuring Harley, Sawyer, and Yarnaby. What really caught my attention, though, was the way Dr. Sawyer controls the factory. He's literally monitoring a whole list of characters, including Kissy, Doughy, and someone listed as Experiment 1007. And let's be real, it's painfully obvious this is the next big one after the prototype. And here's where things get real spicy, because lately there's been a flood of theories about who this could be, ranging from Poppy herself to some kind of alternate version of the prototype. But honestly, I don't really buy into any of those. What did catch my attention, though, is the theory that this might be a completely new character, and that idea genuinely has me intrigued. I mean, it totally makes sense that each chapter brings in a new main character, like Mommy Longlegs in Chapter 2 or Doughy in Chapter 4. And if you think back to summer 2024, Mob basically spelled it out that Doughy was coming, but nobody caught on at the time. Honestly, that's a classic move from studios like this, and I'm pretty confident they're doing the exact same thing again, dropping hints about a brand new boss character. So yeah, aside from Huggy, we're 100% getting another major character in Chapter 5. Who could it be? I've got no idea, and I'm not even gonna pretend to guess, cause even if you dig through weeks of the most obscure Poppy Playtime content out there, you still won't find a single clue about what Experiment 1007 actually looks like. Also, everybody remembers that the first time we ever saw part of the prototype's body was back in Chapter 2. Then, in Chapter 3, we got to see a bit more of him, and finally, Chapter 4 gave us a full silhouette. end, it's only logical that many fans immediately started saying Chapter 5 will finally reveal what the prototype really looks like. And honestly, I'm more and more convinced it will. Everyone remembers that video, but let's be real, it's pretty useless to us, except for the thumbnail. One user pointed out that behind all the familiar characters, there's a strange silhouette. And if you look a little closer, it becomes pretty clear that it's none other than Experiment 1006, aka the prototype. Pretty interesting detail, right? On one hand, it could just be part of the background art, but on the other, it might actually be hinting at, or even confirming, that we'll finally see the prototype in Chapter 5. What do you think about it? So, let's finally talk about who actually survived and is almost guaranteed to show up in Chapter 5. But before that, here's why I'm so sure we have to see at least one of the already known smiling critters. We all pretty much know by now that Chapter 5 is very likely going to be the final chapter in the Poppy Playtime saga, and the chances of that just keep rising, especially with signs pointing to the prototype finally making a full appearance. Add to that Huggy's unexpected return, and yeah, it's clearly all building up to something big. If Chapter 5 is going to be the last, then the main goal, destroying the prototype, has to be completed in this chapter. And since we know the prototype is the strongest thing that was ever created in the labs, there's no way we're taking it down with just us, Poppy, and maybe Kissy, if she actually survived. And even if we go with the theory that Huggy will be on our side, that still wouldn't be enough to take down the prototype, especially if he ends up having a few allies of his own like Experiment 1007. In that case, we'll definitely need to gather our own kind of army, made up of friendly characters who can help us achieve our main goal. Right off the bat, we can say that Dog Day definitely won't be helping us. Yeah, we didn't see him die, but his body was completely destroyed by the evil toys. And even if they leave him alone, an ally without legs or internal organs probably won't be much help. Same goes for Kickin' Chicken and Bubba Bubba Fan. Both are confirmed dead. As for Crafty Corn, it's unclear whether she survived, but her obsession with red gas pretty much tells us we shouldn't expect any help from her either. Meanwhile, Picky Piggy has clearly gone evil after the starvation event inside Playtime Factory. But even with all that, it's still totally possible that the last two are alive. And if they are, then regardless of whether they're on our side or not, we're probably gonna see them show up in Chapter 5. If we're talking about Bobby Bear Hug, we never actually heard any screams for help or signs of terror from her, so it's totally possible she's still alive. But if you remember that one page from the first Poppy Playtime book, it becomes clear we're not getting any help from her either. Basically, Bobby's way too weak to fight. Still, the fact that they chose to highlight her back then makes me pretty sure she's out there right now hiding and waiting for help. Now, things get way more interesting with Hoppy Hopscotch. Just like with Bobby, we didn't hear her screaming because of the prototype or catnap. Her only scream came from jumping too high. Taking that into account, plus the fact that we got her VHS tape in Chapter 4, and remembering that one note on the wall, it really looks like Hoppy is still alive and will definitely be one of our allies. And the last of the smiling critters is Catnap, who, in a way, ended up getting punished by his own master. And I doubt Catnap actually survived after that, but even if he did, his return probably wouldn't be a big surprise to anyone. As always, I'm waiting for your thoughts and theories in the comments, and I'll see you soon in the next videos.